Hey friends, Catherine here. Today I'm going to be showing you a bit of actual bookbinding. I showed you a little bit of recovering a composition book, which is sort of what I call like cheater's bookbinding the other day, but I'm going to be showing you a bit of actual bookbinding today. The things you will need for this project are a sewing needle and thread, a pin with something that you can press against that'll be comfortable because you don't want to be pressing against the end of that sewing needle, and enough paper cut to the size that you cut to twice the size that you want your book to be, to make a book with as many pages as you want to have. I've got some pretty patterned papers here, and I've got some blank pages to mix in between. You can also mix in like doilies or like newspaper pages or pages that have pockets on them. It's very flexible. But we're going to be showing you how to make a book today with these pages. I've got them already cut to the size that I end up wanting, which is, let's see here. This is, help if I had the ruler the right way up. That's what I get for see-through rulers. 7.5 by 5.5. So, those are the pages that I've got cut. It's going to be a pretty small book when all is said and done, because it'll end up being, there we go, this folded in half. So it's going to end up being a book about this size, which is, I think, perfect for like quick notes and making like a small book. We don't want to make it a huge, thick book in this case, I don't think. Today the video is going to be on making the signatures and sewing them together. This is a set of signatures that have been sewn together. And once it's sewn together like this, it's called a text block. So this is roughly what it's going to end up looking like. Then we have this, which is a text block which has been glued and has got the cover pages on with a bit of binding tape. So this is what it looks like after you've glued the binding. If you're going to glue it, you don't have to. And it's got cover pages on. And then this is what a book looks like after you've fully covered it. These are all books that I have made, by the way. This one has got brown paper around every other signature to separate it off. It's got a pocket in the front, and it is what I use to keep my beekeeping journal in, my notes in. So this is indispensable to me. But today, the first thing is we're going to be folding our signatures and making a text block. So let's start with folding all of these pages in half, which really honestly doesn't need to be done individually. These printed papers are slightly heavier than the blank pages are, which is all right, shouldn't affect anything. You can use papers of different weight. That shouldn't mess with it at all. I just want to fold the color pages individually because I'm going to be placing them randomly throughout the book. Well, I say randomly. We'll see how that works out. And then we'll just start putting together a signature of 5 pages. So that, and that gives me 4, and 5. All right, 1 signature. Now, another one. Okay. So we've got our signatures all folded and ready to go. Now we need to make our template for puncturing holes in the crease of each of these signatures so that they can all match up. That's not the right word. So that they all match up distance-wise. And for that, what we're going to do is we're going to take one of our extra blank pages, always fold a couple extra, it's just a good idea, and fold that in half so that we have like a regular page. And then we're going to take and fold that in half top to bottom, because that'll determine our center point, which is right there now. And then what we're going to do is fold that into thirds. If you're good at eyeballing it, eyeball it. If you're not good at eyeballing it, measure. Because you really do kind of want that to be fairly in thirds. There we go. And then what we're going to do is take and put a mark there. And that also marked our center, which is convenient. And then a mark at that outside fold. So that gives us marks, should be anyway, at 5 points down the back of this. So if we unfold it so that it's back to the length of our book, we've got marks at 5 points down the back. Then what we're going to do is just flip that open and take our pin and punch holes in the paper at each of those 5 points, because we want to be very consistent with where those end up. If you're not consistent, your stitches won't match up. And if your stitches don't match up, you are doomed. We'll call it like it is. If your stitches don't match up, you're doomed. So you're going to take then each signature individually, open it back up, lay it flat, line your template up with it, and then take and jab your pin through your marked spots all the way through on each of the signatures. You'll want to wiggle it around a little bit. You want those holes to be really obvious in the paper. You want to be able to find them easily and put your needle through them easily, and you want an easy time of it. Be good to yourself. There we go. Okay, so then we take our template off and we've got our 5 clearly marked holes, and we're going to set that one aside and do the next one. We've got now find a needle and your thread and pull off a good long piece. You're going to need a lot of thread, and the more you have to start with, the more you have to pull through and work with, yes, but also the fewer times you have to rethread your needle. So that's the way it is. There you have it. Go ahead and thread your needle. There we go. I think I've got it. It's hard to say. Yep, there we go. All right, and then pull your threads down. Ooh. So that the two ends meet. If you hadn't chosen such a color that blends in with everything, it'd be easier to see them. But there you have it. There we go. Choose a nice bright color or a nice dark color, or white, of course, if you want it to blend in with your paper. White's probably a good idea. I'm using purple. Whatever. go. Hold that. Tie the ends down. Okay, now we've got them tied up. Let's make a knot that is wider. Bigger knot. We want something that's not going to pull through the paper. Go. So you can do that usually by twirling it and then refinding your ends and pulling them. You can usually get something like a pretty decent knot on that. There we go. Or you can just break your thread. There we are. All right. So, pick up your first signature and run your needle through the hole that you punched. And then actually, without pulling that all the way down, just hold it off to the end. And then go on the inside and run your needle through the second hole. This is going to be called a saddle stitch. If this is the only thing that you do, if you do a single signature and do a saddle stitch, you can make a perfectly good book that way. Go. Come on, you. All the way through. There we have it. You want to keep it pretty tight and all the way down to the end one. Then, when you reach the end, as we've done here, reach to the end, turn it around and put it back through the previous one. Go, and then go the opposite direction. So, the next previous one. Go. Just making sure to keep it tight, but not pulling it so tight that it tears the paper. We have it. There we are. And then we can tie this off. Haha, see, that's why we didn't end up needing such a small tight knot. We can tie it off right at the end, but you want to make sure that you tie it as close to the first hole that you ran it through as possible. So tie it off there and tie it around a second time if you can get it to cooperate. Second time, there we go, and that should be pretty secure. I like to tie things 3 times because I don't want anything coming apart. And it's not going to. It won't come apart with 2 knots, but I'm going to tie a 3rd one anyway. There we go. Alright, and then I will trim the excess tail here. There we have it. And now we are ready to attach our next signature. This is the interesting part and how we're going to set up for the rest of our signatures. So we take our next signature right with this one and we line it, we open it up to the center and line it up with our previous one and put our thread through our corresponding hole. So far so good. Seeing everything the same way that it was before. And then back out through the next hole. But now, instead of going through this hole, what we are going to do is go underneath the thread of our previous signature and back through the hole that we just came through. Go back through there. And then through the next one. Through the next one. And this is why it's important that these holes line up, because they are going to be attached at each point that there is a hole. So we go through underneath and underneath. Pull it tight and back in. And through. If we can convince it to. There we go. And underneath. And underneath. And back through. And so we should end up with thread all the way along the inside and none on the outside of the second signature, except those loops that go underneath are previous. Go through, and then this one goes back through itself. Go, and that signature is attached. Now we go to the next signature. Open it up to the center, line it up with the other signatures, and same thing over again. We are almost out of thread here though, so when we run out of thread, we will show you about reloading our thread. It's pretty straightforward. I think you'll probably already understand it, but we'll show it to you anyway. And then we'll do the rest of these. Go. And you always go underneath your previous loops here. So I didn't go all the way to the first signature, I only went to the second one. Go. But this is probably the last stitch we're going to be able to get on here before we have to rethread our needle. Oh yeah, definitely. Maybe we shouldn't have even got to that one. Let's see if we can't snug it down a little bit tighter. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so to rethread our needle, what we're going to end up doing is trimming the thread as close to the needle as possible, setting ourselves up with a new length of thread, as long as we feel is manageable. Trim it off, thread it on the needle, there we go. The problem is I can't tell whether or not the needle is threaded because I've not got my eyes on. Anyway, grab your two ends, tie them to each other to make sure that they stay even. There we go. Just a simple knot should do it. And then tie those to our previous thread, as close to our signatures as possible, because we want it to stay on the outside of the signatures. We don't want this knot to pull to the inside. Go. I'm terrible at knots, you guys. In case you hadn't noticed, through all of the times that I try to tie knots and don't do so well at it. I'm terrible at it. But that did not end up where we wanted it. Oh well. It'll be what it'll be. It is where it's at now. Go. And then just trim off those tails as close to the knot as possible without cutting our knot, because we don't have enough length left over here to tie another knot. There we go. And then pull our needle to the center point of our thread and continue right on sewing. And now we are ready to tie off. So what we're going to do is do the same thing that we did before, loop it back through itself. Pull it down tight, and then loop it through the next one again. Go the one connected to the next signature away from it. It helps if I do it toward the outside, because then I can run the needle off the end and just grab it and pull it around. And then the next signature and the next one. We're just securing this end so that it doesn't come undone, and that should be good enough. So we will loop it through itself, and then loop it through itself, and then loop it through itself, and loop it through itself, until you feel like it'll be secure when you just pull it down tight, because that'll finish off the knot. And we are finishing off the knot on the outside because that will hide the knot, just as we wanted to try to tie the knots on the outside when we were tying new thread on. We want to try to tie the knot on the outside when we are finishing off. And we can put our needle away for another day. And that is one set of 8 signatures, 5 pages each, 40 pages all together, tied together, sewn together in a text block. Next episode we will be showing you, next episode of bookbinding anyway, probably not tomorrow, we will be showing you how to glue the bindings and attach the cover pages. Stick around and see you next time for the next step in bookbinding. I will see you guys all later. Bye!